What's good, everybody? We are live with another episode of Rolam Live. I am your host. I am Rolam, and today I am joined by the writer extraordinaire, Eastin Deverna. Eastin, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, what's up, bro? Good. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Man, for sure, man. It's good to meet you. It's good to talk with you. I've been following you for a little while now, and so I've been waiting on this conversation. So I'm glad to have you here, brother.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to chat.
For sure. So, we're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about life. But before we do, I always like to ask, the first question I like to ask is, what is inspiring you right now, Eastin? What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What's getting that creative spark going for you right now?
Okay. So what inspires me? Well, two things, I guess, that inspire me that aren't really watching or reading lately have been my kiddo. She's 4. And just like the unending amount of creativity and fearlessness that comes with that age is inspiring. Yeah. And it sort of like reminds me of, kind of like why or what it is to create in the first place. Like it's just like an expression of being alive. And like, like a 4-year-old's not like, I'm going to sit here and write a poem or create a masterpiece. They're just like, whatever I feel like doing. Right. And I love that. It's like that, this sort of chaotic energy. Also nature. We finally are getting colder weather, and I love that. Like I get it makes me feel alive. And I just like to see the changing of the leaves, and we take the kid out to some parks and things with streams and lakes, and it's just nice to see all of that changing. And I like to just slow down and watch that. So that always sort of inspires me. As far as reading, I just finished reading a novel called All the Light We Cannot See, which is going to be a TV show.
I saw that the other day. I saw that trailer.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense novel, but it was really good. And reading that, like, I felt like, yeah, it was a very entertaining story. It was a very sad story. I won't get into spoilers because it's coming out soon on television. But it's one of those books that kind of made me slow down and look at how the author was writing, and because I was like learning at the same time, So that's anytime I find a book like that where I'm like entertained, but also like, holy smokes, like how did they just write that passage or that line of prose?
Right.
Like seeing what they did there and why did it work so well? So I read that. I'm doing in Handwritten, I'm doing a lot of haiku. So Matsuo Basho is they say like the father of haiku. So I have that collection on my desk, and I always revisit it because I feel like those sort of, they're so short. You can read it over and over again before you really get the point, or you can get the point on the first read through, or it might be different for everyone. And that's what I love about it. But it sort of transports you into, someone else's mind and place and, and time. And that's, to me, that's always inspiring. So
yeah, for sure.
Listening to, I don't know. I listen to like a lot of video game soundtracks while I write.
Okay.
This one soundtrack from this game called Kingdom 2 Crowns. It's a strategy game, but it's by this person called Amos Roddy, and it's just beautiful music, and it tells a story too. It's not like your traditional video game soundtrack, whatever that means, if there even is.
Right.
But yeah, I like that, and it's sort of because it tells a story, through the music, and that really inspires me to do that. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I appreciate you answering every single area. You really didn't. You could have just said like one thing or two things, but no, I appreciate that. That was great. I think for me, something that's been inspiring me has been, so on my Patreon, this was a crazy idea. I woke up and I said, oh, it's going to be 100 days left in the year. So I'm going to write a new story every day for the rest of this year.
That's amazing.
It's today was day 40 and I've hit every day, but I think it's really helped me to get over the perfectionism.
Yes.
I'm the type of person I'm thinking about, oh, is this structured right? Is this, is the word choice right? But I don't have time to think about all that when it's, I
Right.
get into a story today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for me, I recognize these are first drafts. These are just ideas that I'm going to come back to and play with and shape and mold. But it's just been good to, even on the days when I feel like, wow, I don't really have anything left. It's like, nah, you made a commitment. Let's do it,
So let me ask you,
yeah.
on those days where you feel like, the well has run dry, or you've been doing this for 40 days, you still got 60 days to go, where are you drawing that inspiration from? Or are you just kind of sitting down and whatever comes out?
So here's the little trick I've been doing. Every day I have a word.
Okay.
I got like a list of random words and I have them on the calendar. So I get up in the morning. Today's word was requirement. Tomorrow is victory. And so I just use that word to just get me whatever like associations I make from that word. I just sort of just go down that path. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it turns into, some type of like surreal, like poem type thing that I'm doing. Sometimes, most times it's a story, but I've just been trying to let it just flow. You know what I mean? And not sort of like what you were talking about, like, with the child, like not having to make it a thing, you know what I'm saying? But just sitting down and really just putting words down. But it's been good because it's translating into my other writing and my other, my other thinking. It's just, I don't know. It's like freeing me up somehow. I don't know. It's been good though. It's been really good.
I totally get that. I find usually when I'm writing, I'm working on a number of stories at a time, and I can't just focus on one thing, whether it's a comic script or like a novel. I need to have at least 3 things because I have to jump back and forth. Otherwise I get mired, or I'll start to get, like you said, you start agonizing over the right word choice or the right structure. And so when that happens, like, it's good to just be able to shift gears into something else to free it up, So I love that. How long are these stories that you're doing?
Some of them have been, most of them have been like between 800 and 1,000 words.
Oh, nice.
Some of them have been, like 300 words. I think one day I did like a 6-word story, but for the most part, they've all been like 800 to 1,000 words. I think one might have been like 1,500. But like I said, I just been letting it flow. You know what I'm saying? Just going, So, but that's great though. I think you just said something that had me thinking about, I think this was a later question I was going to ask you, but when you talk about jumping between your different ideas, one of the things I heard you say on an interview before, you talked about your creative kryptonite was time. And you were talking about, having to do all the things outside of writing, right, that makes you an indie writer. You know what I mean? What practical things have you implemented to help you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. So it's something that I was very good at for a while. I've recently fell out of it. And I think this just came with like life and having a 4-year-old and things like that. But I had to become very disciplined in finding time to write, and where things were quiet and I could focus and not be distracted. And that was in the morning. So I would, for a while there, I was getting to like a 4:35, like sitting, because that's the only time the house was quiet and I could focus, So I get my coffee, sit down and try and, hammer out, 1,000, 2,000 words, whatever I could do that day.
Right.
And so that was, a number of things come with being able to do that. It's going to bed early, making sure that, you have your schedule structured. But sometimes life just doesn't allow for that, And so that was good while it lasted. Things have become a little bit more chaotic, which is fine because that's life. I've had to adapt and just be able to sort of roll with it, and say, all right, well, I'm not waking up that early because the kiddo had a hard night. She was up in the middle of the night or went to bed late. So now I'm waking up later. no time to write in the morning. Got to make breakfast, get her to school, get to the day job. So when can I write? You know, whether it's a lunch break, whether it's while she's watching a show, I'm scribbling in a notebook, or staying up later. So it's
Right.
kind of just like being fluid with it. And I used to be very like, I need to get this word count. I need to do this, or, you know, I need to sit at the desk for an hour or more, or whatever. Now it's just like, if I can get the words on the page, that's a win. And,
Right. For
and
sure.
I've learned too that like it's okay to step away from the computer, because like we'll go to the park or something, or I'll have to go do some yard work, which will pull me away from the desk and writing. But in the middle of that, you know, you'll get an idea,
Yeah.
and something will click that wasn't working, and then you're like, oh wow, that I got it. And but would you have gotten that idea, or would you have figured it out if you were sitting there toiling away at the desk?
Right.
Probably not, you know. So it's getting away from there. Like, writing is not just sitting there and typing or writing or handwriting. It's a continuing process, you know. So I'm trying to get better at, and I am getting better at, just being able to adapt to that process. I think Neil Gaiman said something like, you know, he's one of the most prolific modern writers.
Absolutely.
I think he said he, like, when he was writing Coraline, he was writing like 30 words a day or something like that, which is like nothing, you know. And you think of him, because I guess he has his own things going on too, and it's just like, you get it in when you can, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of that adaptation, for me, I was always very precious about, when I go in the room, I close the door. This is my writing time. Like, I need silence. I need space. I need.
Yes.
And with this 100 word or 100-day story thing, I'm like, sometimes I'm sitting on the couch, the kids are running around playing. I'm sitting on the couch writing. You know what I'm saying? And so it's forced me to like, nah, you can write anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you could do this, you know?
Exactly.
And so it's that constant adaptation. I think I definitely agree, you know what I'm saying, with that, for sure.
Yeah.
What is your, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you have to be able to adapt if you're gonna get it done, right?
Yeah.
You gotta do it where you can. No one that I know has the luxury of, you know, this is my writing time carved out through the day. And if you have it, great. But there's a lot. Everyone has a lot going on, you know. When you're trying to write these stories, you just got to do it when you can. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, like you said, even if you have those spaces allotted, these ideas don't click when you're in that space. Sometimes you out at the grocery store, you doing something that has nothing to do with writing, and then it clicks. And you're like, oh, that was the piece. You know what I'm saying?
I take out my phone. I send myself so many emails. I'm like,
yes, for sure. So what does an ideal, coming off of that, what does an ideal writing day look like? But from the perspective of, let's say you're working on 4 different projects, right?
Yeah.
How do you break up your day to work on those projects? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, like, if I do have one of those good mornings where I can wake up early and sit down. So right now I have a novel that I'm finishing / editing at the same time. I'm at like around 100,000 words. I had this crazy idea while I was revisiting it, to change it from past tense to present tense. So I'm currently going through that process and rewriting that. So usually, like, to shake off the cobwebs when I wake up, you know, I'll get the coffee, I'll sit down, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to focus on this chapter or this X amount of pages of revising the tense to present tense, but also at the same time, I'm making story edits and copy edits and things like that.
Right.
So that's a good way for me to get warmed up, because it's not like, it's kind of mechanical, you know. I'm not really like trying to create new things until I get to the point where I do need to start doing that, which I'm still way away from there. So I like to do that to start. I'm working on new A Guardian script as well for the final volume of that, and that's a graphic novel. So once I feel like I'm warmed up a little bit through the editing, I'll go into there. If I can get two pages, honestly, I'll be happy of that done. And then I do have another novella that I'm writing where I feel like once I've gotten into the creative zone through scripting a comic, to write, dialogue exercises and,
Right.
and,
Right.
and panel descriptions, then I feel like I'm pretty warmed up and I'm ready to get back into uh, this novella. So I kind of go novel, comic, graphic novel, novella, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And if I that would be like a perfect day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, if I get one of those in, it's a good day.
Yeah. 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 For sure. For sure. So let's jump back, because this is one question I love to ask all my guests, because every time I ask this question, I've gotten different answers, and I just think that's amazing. So here's the question: how do you define creativity?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And I guess that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately too. And maybe it kind of does go back to this, what I was talking about a little bit earlier, like with the kiddo and watching a 4-year-old create something.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of just an expression. Yeah, it's an expression of yourself and your experiences and your influences and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of just an expression of being alive, and um and and putting your stamp, however brief it is, into the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, creativity doesn't have to be anything, doesn't have to be a polished novel or a comic book or a collection of poetry or even music. All of that stuff is creative, but it could be something so simple like gardening,
Yeah. Yeah.
going out there and arranging the plants in a different way this year than what you did last year.
Right.
And it's just, that's an expression of being there in that time and in that moment. It's the world is a little bit different than it was because of you being there and what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like where I'm at right now with creativity anyway.
Yeah.
I've obviously I've had a lot of different thoughts about that, but I'm, where I am in my career, I'm kind of just like, and I have been thinking about this because I'm like, and I've been talking to some of my friends because we're like, why do we create? Because like
Right.
it's so difficult sometimes, right? And it can be
Yeah.
stressful. Like we were talking about before the show about running a Kickstarter and self-publishing. Like that's all very tough and stressful stuff. As fun and as rewarding as it is, it's tough. So why do we do it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I love the fact that you constantly mention your child when we're having this conversation. And because this is another question I love to ask, is how has fatherhood impacted your creativity?
I think, you're a father, right?
For sure. I got 4 boys.
Okay. I only have 1 kid, so, and I'm already tired. But for me, like, a lot changed when we got Lila. So Lila is our kid. She's amazing. We had some tough times before her with miscarriage and things like that. And that really impacted me a lot. But when we got her, like that was just like everything. And I was like, nothing else matters. This is the most important thing. And when that happens, when you have something else that means that much to you, it changes your outlook on things and your fears. Like my fear now is losing her or anything bad happening to her. And a lot of writing for me is writing about my fears or confronting them, in a way or in a cathartic way. And so a lot of that has been coming into my work in a creative way. Characters dealing with that, dealing with what we went through before her. What are my fears now? What are my fears for the future? Raising a kid in the world that we live in is scary. And then what does that do to you as a person? Because we're vulnerable as parents, and the other day she said something to me. I was like pretending to be scared at a Halloween thing. She was like, "Oh, you can't be afraid. You're a father." I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, you don't even know."
Right.
But you're right. I got to be brave and strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
But then, yeah, on the practical level, like you said, it's like they're running around, they're chasing you. You have ideas, you're scribbling in a notebook, you're sending yourself emails, you're trying to get it done where you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned this I think I mentioned it last week, but one day I was driving in the car, and I also make music. So I rap. And I had a track playing, and I was like, sort of doing my thing. I don't really have words yet, but I'm like playing with sounds and figuring out how I want to flow over it. And my son asked me, he said, "Daddy, are you writing a song?" And I said, "I'm working on it, And I think for me, it just reminded me, when I think about my creativity and I think about my kids, I think about the fact that they're watching, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mhm.
And somebody asked me, what do I want my sons to know about my creativity? And I said, I just want them to know that I created things, and I want them to know that I put it into the world.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching them, one of my sons in particular, he'll like take a piece of paper and like fold it up and like put little drawings in there and write little things and say, "Look, Daddy, I wrote a book." And he's like, "It's like your book. It's like your comic book." You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, yeah, like you've seen what I've done, and
Yeah.
you're following that. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah.
And
And
so,
it's interesting because I feel like there's a time like now where they'll inspire us when they're young, right? And there
yeah,
might be a time when they're getting older and, you know, the world starts wearing on them. They might look and be like, look what my parents were able to do, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
And I think that might, in turn inspire them to find that spark if they need to.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, when did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
Uh, so I started reading a lot when I was in, I don't know, fourth grade or fifth grade. I was reading books like The Lord of the Rings or the Redwall.
Redwall. Let's
Redwall,
go. I love Redwall.
absolutely. That's what really got me into reading.
Yeah,
And those just sort of like they were a form of escapism for me. My parents got divorced when I was 14, so it was a little bit, it was a good childhood, but we had some rocky times, and I found my solace in books and fantasy stories, especially.
mhm,
Um, so those books really sort of inspired me, and I remember just like having a blank notebook and sitting down one day and like writing some silly like fantasy adventure story that was basically just me and like my neighbors and brothers and sisters as characters, and we were just like looking for treasure or something. So I
mhm.
would literally handwrite that in notebook. It was probably terrible, but that's that. I think and I still remember that to this day, and I wish I could find it. It's probably long gone because I would love to see what my mind was like back then writing that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think that was it. And then I always sort of made stuff up, and I took some creative writing courses in undergrad, um, and that really sort of, I think, invigorated my want to do it. And
yeah,
then I did my MFA in creative writing and literature after that, and that was like, oh, I'm just gonna write forever now because I feel like I can't not do it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I'm glad you mentioned handwriting in the notebook, because I think now we can segue into your latest campaign, Handwritten. Can you talk a little bit about the concept and the genesis for where that came from?
yeah. So I've done this is like my ninth Kickstarter, I think, and I've had success with a lot of them. One did not fund. That was a board game slash
Mm,
graphic novel hybrid. But we still want to revisit that. That was my first venture into the board game world.
that's
But
a big
anyway,
market. That's a big market right there.
yeah, and it's interesting.
Yeah,
But anyway, there's a lot to learn still and
for
reflect
sure.
on with that one. But I've had success with a lot, and I've worked with publishers um, in the past, which have been really good experiences. But recently, like, and this goes back to what we're saying, like I was talking to some friends, like why, what are the reasons we create? What is the mark of success? What do you want to get from this ultimately?
Yeah.
And it took me a minute, because like sometimes you can get stuck in sort of that uh like superficial want of, well, I want to get my book published, I want to sell X amount of numbers, I wanted to get optioned for a TV show or a
Right.
movie or
Right.
whatever. Like, but like, where's the stuff? And it's like, is that what you want? Is that what you're creating? And if that is, fine. Like that works for some people.
Right.
For me, I feel like, I was, for a long time, I was like, when I was in my MFA, I was like, I just can't wait to get published. I just can't wait. Like that's what I need to do. And then I did get published. I had a novel and a bunch of comic books and stuff published. And it was great. It was amazing. But at the same time, I was kind of like, or I would have one book that wasn't as successful as another one or
Right.
a previous one, and then I would start to get down on myself and be like, what am I doing wrong? I'm a hack. What am I? What am I?
Right.
Why am I doing this? And then it really just made me sort of slow down. And I'm not going to get into this too much,
Okay.
but
Be free though. Be free. Be free.
But recently, like everywhere you look, you're hearing about AI, right?
Yeah.
And this was a big thing with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, with
For sure.
taking their likeness and using it in perpetuity, and not giving them royalties because they have a scanned image of their body, and
Right.
they need voiceover actors and all this kinds of stuff. And that was just, and especially on the writing world too. And it was just like, oh my goodness. I was just getting really kind of tired of hearing every single app you use, you get an email. It's like, this is our new AI. And it's like,
Right.
all right. Well, why? What's the point of it? It's just a buzzword right now, or, what's that going to do for you? And I was like, well, what can I do? My father-in-law is a woodworker now that he's retired, and he does amazing things, and it's all handmade. And it's inspiring to see, because he sits there and he figures it out. He makes one piece at a time. It's not mass produced. It's not with the goal of selling thousands of them,
Right.
or getting rich quick or whatever. He makes them basically for his grandkids. And it's like, that's creating, right? And why is he doing? Because he feels the need, he's capable of it, and he's making other people happy with his creations.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm a writer. What can I do? And one day, I was like, oh, maybe I can just handwrite my stuff, as imperfect scribbles, and, with all the notes and everything that it is, and see, try and put that out into the world.
Yeah.
With no, no goal other than that, just like writing these one-off unique pieces and seeing if anyone wants them. And I wasn't sure if anyone would, to be honest with you. I have some good friends who liked the idea, and they were like, you know what, do it. Who cares? And I was like, yeah, if it's one person or 100 people who want it, I'll be happy to do it. And so I made the goal $1. So anyone, they could get a handwritten letter or a poem or a short story. If they wanted it, they would get it.
Or a novel.
Or a novel, which is insane. Yeah.
So, I think what made you, when I saw that the goal was $1, one of the first questions that I thought was, what made you decide to go to Kickstarter? What made you decide to want to crowdfund it? Because this could be easily something that you just do, through your website, where you just say, hey, I'm offering this, boom. You know what I'm saying? What made you say, I'm going to crowdfund it?
Yeah, I think, and that's interesting too, because like I have a Substack. I don't really use it like I should. I'm still like learning, or it's kind of like one other thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, like I'm trying to build a newsletter, and honestly, like practically speaking, right now, the quickest way for me to connect with people who have read my stuff or maybe interested in reading future things is through Kickstarter. Because or backer kit updates, because you have all of your previous backers who have liked your work and believed in it and helped you fund it. It's a direct connection to them. So I was like, if there's anyone who's going to want to who's going to want this stuff is probably going to be the people who have supported me in the past.
Right. Gotcha.
And I think working with Kickstarter over the years, I think I did my first one in like 2016 or something like that. It just made the most sense practically to say, hey, you guys know me by now. If you're interested, you can have a handwritten, unique piece that is only for you. You know, like there's it's never going to exist anywhere else.
Wow. Yeah. So the other question that I had about Handwritten, and everybody who's watching this or sees this, definitely go check it out. The link is in the description of this YouTube video, as well as his website and all those other things. But so when you had this idea, I feel like it's easy for us to talk ourselves out of these, unique, one-of-a-kind ideas, maybe things that we haven't seen before. I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like this before. And so what type of signals or signs do you look for when you have an idea and you say, oh, I'm gonna do this? Like, it feels a little crazy, but I gotta move on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I've been sitting on this for a little while. I was almost going to launch it before we did Samurai Grandpa and the 8-branch tree. But that this is just me working. But the other one is with Sean Daly, my good friend and collaborator.
Great artist.
And our schedules just kind of aligned. So we were like, okay, this is Samurai Grandpa time. So I put this one on the back burner. I think I was probably thinking about this one since June. And yeah, there were times where I was like, I even framed out the Kickstarter page. I built a shell of it and everything. And I was like, that's stupid. No one's going to want that. And I was like, maybe I won't do it. But it's sort of like, again, like you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe in what you're creating and why you're creating it, and I never really had high expectations for this one. Like I'm super grateful for it. Maybe we have like 30 backers or something like that right now. And that's awesome to me.
Yeah.
And the other thing cool about this is that it's going to be way cheaper to ship because it's just going to be paper in an envelope. Right. And I'm clear about that, like this, people know what they're getting.
Right.
And even shipping overseas, a graphic novel package is a nightmare. You have to do customs. It costs a fortune. Wow. But here, like you can get like a global stamp for like, I don't know, like $1 and send an envelope. So it's a thing about accessibility too. Anyone who wants it can get it, no matter where you are. And at the end of the day, I just had to say, like, shut off that voice in your head that's telling you if you don't make thousands of dollars or get hundreds and hundreds of backers, this is a failure. Like, no, it's not. It's you connecting with people on a one-to-one level, which to me is what creating is about. And I've said this before, like to myself in interviews, like if I can affect one person through my writing, like that's a success. And I was like, did I really mean that? Like, put your money where your mouth is. Like,
wow, yeah,
like yeah, I do mean that. And this is a way to sort of do that.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. And I think I love how you mentioned the I guess one of the first times you knew you wanted to be a writer, you pulled out a notebook and you hand wrote it. And I think there's something special about engaging with our craft outside of the rules and the guidelines. You know what I'm saying? I'm the type of person where it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna write a story. All right, cool. Let me find all the structures. Let me find all the, all the plot beats I need to hit. I'm that type of person. And so I think I gravitated to the Kickstarter when I saw it, because I said, oh wow, this is one of those things where, and I think you mentioned it on the page, like it's gonna have the cross outs, it's gonna have the mistakes, like it's gonna be, you're gonna get a story in its rawest form. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not gonna be pretty or polished, but it's gonna be my best effort at doing it for you. And I'm gonna make it the best I can with those cross outs while giving it to you. Yeah.
And I just think that's just so great. Let me ask you this question. What's your favorite part of the writing process?
Probably when you get the idea.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. But that is a very exciting part of it, right? That's when you're kind of filled with energy. It's the anticipation of what this idea could be, the
It's like
potential.
anything could happen at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds so good in your head, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. Uh it's like I think it was Keats who wrote Ode on a Grecian Urn, and he talks about these these two lovers who are eternally frozen in time, and they're just about to kiss.
Right.
Talks about that being like, it's that anticipation that is better than the kiss.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like that when you get the idea. So it's like, oh, this story is going to be great,
Yeah.
and then you sit down and you're like, all right, oh, hang on a second.
Right.
Yeah. But I really do like the actual putting the words to the page too. That's because it's almost like a puzzle, and you're learning about yourself and you're learning about the characters in the world. So it's a form of discovery that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. I always say my favorite part. I think my favorite part is right after you get the idea. Because I've been in like writers' rooms before. So like even like the writer's room, like you have the idea, but then you're like blue skying it, right? So you're just you're brainstorming. It's like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. You're like saying all this stuff, but then it's like somebody has to say, okay, we're on the deadline, so now we need to start narrowing down exactly what we're going to do.
Right.
But I also think I've grown to enjoy the entirety of the process as well. Just moving through the phases and then finishing something. Yeah. And I also consider the sharing it with people a part of the process as well. And I love that. I love putting it in front of people.
Yeah.
And just saying, hey, here's my heart. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. The entirety of the process. That's a great way to put it, because writing is not one point, right? It's like a spectrum of things happening.
Yeah.
And you go from that idea where it's conceived in your head to the point where you're at a con, or you're on an interview or chatting with other creators or fans, and you're like, this is what I made. I hope you like it.
Yeah. Like I was telling you before the show, I was at ATL Comic-Con in February. That was in Atlanta. And I sold like a bunch of number ones of my comic book.
Yeah.
And then I was at Heroes later that year. And I guess that was June. And there were people who were at ATL Comic-Con who came to my table and said, do you have number 2 yet? I mean, multiple people. That's awesome. I was just like, oh, wow. Like, people really out here waiting, they're waiting for this thing that I made. You know what I'm saying? And all of that is just energizing, and it's inspiring. Like, okay, I'm not just doing this, which I would do it for nothing because I just enjoy the process, like I said. But also, there's something really cool about knowing that there are people who are willing and want to read, the things that you're creating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is really neat, and that's awesome. Like that's happened to me before too. Or like I would have a number 1 out, and they would buy it on a Friday, come back to the table on a Saturday, and be like, "Oh, that was awesome! Can I get number 2?" And it's like, that's
right.
Yeah, that's neat. And like, and you're like, I don't know, like you're not thinking like, well, I hope they come back tomorrow. Right. It's just neat when you see them again. They're like, oh, I really liked what you did. Yeah.
Right. Because it's, in indie comic books, it's different than like, it's not coming out, at least for me, it's not coming out every month. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like this, I don't have it like that yet. So it's just really cool. So now I want to move into, this is like my wrap up segment. I call it the one.
Okay.
So originally it was supposed to be like these questions that you give like 1-word answers to, like I forget what they got, like rapid answers, but it don't have to be that. Every guest I've had on has not done it like that. So I'm like, let's just do it. So the first one is, what's one book that you think everyone should read?
Okay, I'm just gonna say my favorite story. Stephen Crane's The Open Boat.
Okay.
That's my favorite short. It's not really a book; it's a short story, but it's my favorite, and it's one that I read over and over again, or I listen to an audio version of it. And that's where I continually find inspiration from Stephen Crane's writing.
Yeah.
What a crazy life he had. He died at 28, which is crazy to me.
Wow.
How prolific he was, and the like the grasp he had on like what it meant to be human. Like it was, yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I did want to say too. You mentioned All the Lights We Cannot See.
Yeah.
Did you read Cloud Cuckoo Land?
No, but I saw that. I saw there's an excerpt in the back of the book, and I was like, I really like this one. I should probably read that one. Have you read that?
Yes, Cloud Cuckoo Land blew me away.
All right.
It's a big book, and it's definitely a commitment to read.
Yeah.
It was I'm actually getting teary-eyed thinking about it right now. It was very well done. And the same thing that you said in terms of like you sort of stop and you think like, how did he do this? Like what like the technique that he writes with.
Fantastic. I was inspired. I loved it. I'm going to go pick that up at the bookstore this weekend. I'll grab it then. Yeah.
That was very good. So the next question, what's one thing you would change about your creative journey?
Well, can I answer this in two parts, even though we're not supposed to?
Do your thing. Be free.
Okay, so first, this might sound a little cliche. I'll say nothing, because I'm happy and content with where I am, and with all the mistakes I made, and not knowing where I was going or what to do, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah,
you've heard that before. But the other part of me would be to say, if I could like go back in time and tell myself when I was starting to write, I would say, don't get bogged down in all of the rules and the things like this is what a short story needs to be. This is the structure. This is the 3x structure, the hero's journey. It all needs to follow this exactly in order to be successful.
Yeah.
I did that too many times, and the stuff that I wrote that has not seen the light of day suffered for it, and I struggled with finding my own creative voice and writing voice because I tried to follow everyone else's rules. And the story does need to follow rules to an extent to make sense, right? But also be yourself and be free, like you're saying. Like you have to. You can't let what everyone else did before you dictate what you're going to do. It can inspire you. You can learn from it.
Yeah.
But don't. I had like creative paralysis when I was trying to follow all of the rules and advice that I heard from every which corner of the creative universe.
Yeah. And I just would like to piggyback off of that, because I think that's something that I've recently come to understand. I think where, like I said, I'm the type of person, like I've got like all the screenwriting books and I got all the structure books, and I spent a lot of time trying to write these structures. And I was listening to a podcast, and it's called the Act 2 Writers Podcast. And one of the hosts was saying the mistake that writers make is that they start trying to write using these structure tools in the beginning, when really you should just write, and then when you get stuck, bring those tools in.
Yeah.
Or, if you feel like something's not working, you can bring those tools in to sort of help you figure it out.
They can help shape the mess that you've put on the page rather than build in that framework. Yeah,
exactly.
I like that.
Exactly. And I think that really helped me to sort of break away from the stricture, you know what I'm saying, of the structure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that. What's one word you would want your legacy described as?
Persistent, maybe.
Why do you say maybe?
I don't know. I think, yeah, I guess I would go with that. I like writers who stick with it despite the odds, I guess, or the setbacks, because everyone faces them, no matter who you are.
Mhm.
Even Stephen King will have books sell less than others, but you just keep going.
Yeah.
And for me, when I see people who do that, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there are people who are going to make six figures, whatever. There are people who don't care or won't, um, and they just write anyway. They just create anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really is inspiring to me. And I hope, there are days where I'm like, sometimes I'm like, what? I don't know why I'm doing this.
Mm.
You get the hard days.
Yeah, for sure.
And I got to be honest about that. They come, but I have more good days than hard days. And I'm still here since when did I finish my MFAs? When I really started writing regularly. I think that was, Jesus, like 2000. I don't know.
Somewhere back there. Somewhere back
2009 or something.
Word.
I can't remember. But I've had some setbacks, but I haven't stopped yet, and I hope I never will. So
Yeah.
If I can keep going, I would like to say that was a persistent son of a bitch of a writer.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What's one thing you hope everyone who hears or sees this to know?
Yeah, I think to know about writing or
Not
creating.
necessarily about writing, just life, or it could be about writing, whatever you want it to be.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess you could apply it to life and writing. It would be to, I guess, just don't be afraid to explore or get creative, because you can be creative in any aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a traditional set or thing in the humanities, right?
Yeah.
It can be anything. So just I guess don't get stuck in the routine.
Yeah.
Be willing to push through it and venture out of it.
Yeah.
And
sure.
just try something new. Be creative. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I think that helps keep life a little more fun, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Eastin, I appreciate you coming through. As you all can see, sliding down the bottom, you can see his Instagram handles, his website. We talked a little bit about Handwritten. Eastin, are there any other links or anything that you want to plug or let people know about?
Let's see. I don't think right now. No, I got a couple other books in the works. But yeah, we're a little bit of a ways out before we get to start promoting
Cool.
those. So yeah, but yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate having me on, bro. It's been a good time chatting.
Man, thank you for coming through, Eastin. And I just want to say, man, I really appreciate you, bro. Like I said, I've been following you for a while, and I just appreciate the ease with which you're going about the journey. For me, that's been really inspiring. Just watching from afar, and like the little post with the like you'll have the mug and you'll see like the garden in the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I'm like, yo, he's a writer's writer. You know what I'm saying? He's a writer's writer.
That's awesome.
But I just really appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming through. Super grateful to have this conversation with you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. Like this, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody if you enjoyed it. And I will see you guys later. As always, I love y'all.